What's going on, you guys? TBR here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another King of Fighters All-Star video. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the 2022 Valentine's Day events that were just added into the King of Fighters All-Star with the latest patch update late last night. We're going to give you all the information that you need to know on these events, but before we get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so and you enjoy daily King of Fighters All-Star content such as this, you smash that like button and subscribe. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright, you guys, like I said in the introduction, in today's video, we're going to go ahead and break down all of the Valentine's Day events for 2022. So let's go ahead and get into it. And hopefully the new PC port works for us today because, yeah, it's been a little shoddy this morning, we'll put it that way. This is like my 10th attempt at this. Fingers crossed. So, first thing you guys are going to want to know is about the World Drop event. Now, the reason being is the World Drop event is going to tie into a ton of these other events that we're going to talk about today, so let's start there. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a look at these little fireballs down here next to your dungeon and your story tabs respectively. So if we go ahead and click on those, you will see that this is where you can go ahead and obtain these different items for the World Drop event. So the first thing obviously is going to be the Roulette tickets. Those aren't anything we need to go into too much explanation on. Should be pretty self-explanatory on those. However, what we do need to talk about is there's two different musical notes that you're going to need to collect for that crafting event. One is going to be the 8th note, and then the other is going to be the 16th note. Now with the 8th note, you're going to have to grind on the battle card dungeon. My recommendation with the battle card dungeon is always to grind on the hardest difficulty you can, but that is going to come down to an individual basis as to which one you're going to want to grind on, but that would be my recommendation, just because in general the card drops, depending on the difficulty, can be better at the higher difficulties, so you might as well kill two birds with one stone. So that's what you need to know about this part of the World Drop event. When it comes to the story mode here, you can grind story mode for the 16th note. So this is going to be the other of the two notes that you're going to be able to grind for the World Drop event. When it comes to grinding on story mode, I always recommend that you try to grind on whichever difficulty you can. Typically the highest difficulty is going to be preferable, and then you're going to want to pick a story mode where you're just going in and fighting either just one wave or just one boss. So those are typically going to be the most bang for your buck, because typically you're going to be able to clear those just that much faster. So you can go in and just pretty much pick whichever story mission you prefer at that point. But like I said, the one that I would recommend is always going to be ones where you're just fighting one boss, because typically you're going to be able to grind through those in half the time, as opposed to going through and grinding on a dungeon where you're going to have to go in and fight a bunch of waves. So that's my recommendation there, but that is where you're going to be able to pick up all these different things for the World Drop event. Now, with that being said, what are you using those on? So the first thing we're going to talk about here is going to be the crafting event. Now the crafting event, as you guys can see, is going to have several different items here that we can craft, and we are going to need all of these musical notes in order to do this. Now one thing that you're going to want to pay attention to here is you are going to need the 16th note, you're going to need this 8th note, and you're also going to need this guy here. Now the clef note is available through the roulette, which we'll talk about, but basically you're going to need X amount of these depending on what you're wanting to craft, and these are going to be the different things that you can craft down here. So of course, as you guys can see, you can craft Lovely Kula. We've talked about Lovely Kula plenty in the past. This is a unified banner character that is very outdated, not necessarily the greatest character in the world anymore, but at the same time, as far as unified banner fests are concerned, she's definitely not the worst. So if you don't already have her, or you're somebody that's new to the game, this would be a good character to have, but in general, for us veterans, this is probably a character we've already had built up for quite a long time. Now, the big selling point here isn't going to be Lovely Kula, it's going to be some of these other items. So let's kind of look through here. So first up, you're going to see these hammer boxes. If we take a look here, you are going to be able to pick up elite enhancement and rare enhancement hammers in here, as well as the lower ones. So you're going to be able to pick up commons and uncommons, which I wouldn't necessarily say is all that important, but getting those elite enhancement hammers is always nice, and it is a pretty low amount of these musical notes that you need for those, so that's really good. Now, This guy here is going to be pretty much for your Awakening XP capsules, your gold memories, and so on and so forth. You get your fest memories, you get all kinds of stuff in here, so this is kind of a mixed bag. So this one isn't too bad, but not anything too crazy. And then if we take a look at this guy here, go in here, you're going to see that this is going to have gold, soul dust, purple souls, blue souls, so on and so forth. You're going to have some hexagon cores, you're going to have your sorted core boxes, and so on and so forth. So pretty much just some items so that you can build up your characters. And then this last one here, if we take a look, is pretty much going to be largely the same. So that's pretty much what we're seeing with this. Now, as far as what the value is here, not too shabby. I would say that in general, you're probably going to be living on these here because this is, in my opinion, where the most value is. But then again, if you're somebody that is a beginner or an intermediate, then a lot of these here could end up showing value to you, because I know that for some people especially, some of these souls can be a little bit tough to come by. So depending on where you're at in the game, that's going to kind of dictate what you're going to want to craft here. But for me personally, as a veteran, I'm definitely going to be prioritizing these hammer boxes. So that's pretty much what we're getting with the crafting event. Not anything too crazy, but it is a nice little event. Now, if we take a look here at the roulette, now, of course, this is going to be where you're going to be able to pick up that G-Clef that you're going to need, and we're also going to be able to, as I've already established with the World Drop event, grind some of these roulette tickets that you're going to need for this. Now, this time around, we pretty much have just a bunch of different items on this, but it is nice to see that we have rare enhancement hammers as well as these capsules. So in general, really the big selling point here is going to be the G-Clef notes as well as picking up hammers, but in general, there isn't much to talk about with this roulette, because really this roulette is largely going to be pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to want to make sure, depending on how much you're wanting to grind on this event, that you pick up as many of these roulette tickets as possible. So that's pretty much what you're looking at there. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is probably the most important thing, and that is going to be this guy here. So basically, this event is going to be chock full of value for people. Now, the way that you're going to need to do this is you're going to need to feed items to the ladies here in order to build up your mileage. As you can see, there's levels to your mileage. So if we take a look here, we're going to be able to get these corresponding rewards for these mileage rewards, depending on how much you level this up. So you're going to go in and you're going to feed these items from that relay dungeon that we'll talk about next, and you're going to parlay those into this, and you're going to be able to level this up and pick up the corresponding reward. And the final reward, as you guys can see, is going to be a Boss Syndrome generic memory. That is a big deal, and in general, the rest of the stuff on here is actually not too shabby. You're going to get a ton of memories for Kula, so that's nice again for all of you beginners and intermediates. But the other nice thing on here is you're going to be able to pick up a ton of these capsules. So as you guys can see, you're going to get 100 selection boxes here, and then you're also going to see another 100 here. So that's really nice, but the other big selling point for people is going to be this Platinum Set Card Selector. Now, this is going to have all of the different cards that are going to be on the Unified banner for your Fest cards. So that's pretty much what you're going to be able to get there. So in general, this is chock full of value and has a ton of really good items on it, and it should be a pretty easy event to get through. Now, the way that you're going to pick up these different items down here is of course going to be in the Happy Valentine's Day Kasumi Team Relay Dungeon. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this dungeon isn't going to be that difficult. I know a lot of people were really worried that this was going to be a repeat of the Zombie Rod event. Luckily, that is not the case, and you guys will be able to see that here, but there are going to be a few caveats. So the first thing you're going to need to know is you can only use female fighters, right? So as you guys can see, I have my team selected already, but you're only going to be able to pick up and use your ladies. So depending on what your roster looks like, that could change things depending on what you're looking at as far as who you have available to you, as far as what the difficulty will be. But I would argue that once you see this, this is pretty easy. So what we're going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and switch my controller on, because every time you close this thing down, you have to go in and do that for whatever reason. And we're going to go ahead and play that, and we're going to see how that performs. So let's go ahead and do that there, and then we'll go ahead and we will play this thing, and we'll see just how difficult it really is. Now, spoiler alert, I've already played through this once and kind of messed around with it. It wasn't all that difficult, so we'll go ahead and check this thing out and see what we're looking at here. And I'm going to turn the volume down because, yeah, that's a bit obnoxious. So yeah, guys, really with this event in general for this whole thing, I am not all that kind of impressed, to be honest. None of this stuff is anything I feel like is too crazy. Like, really, I'm not even trying here, I'm just talking. Because none of this stuff is really all that difficult, if I'm being honest. You know, really this thing is going to be largely very easy for most people. So in general, I think that you're going to find that this is a very inclusive event. Like you guys just saw, I barely even was paying attention. I was even looking at the camera at one point. So it's really not that difficult. You'll be able to take this down really easy if you have some of these ladies built up. Like again, I said, you know, when it comes to beginners or intermediates, you may have a bit more of a difficult time, but as you guys can see, pretty easy stuff for us veterans. So that's done there. We picked up our items that we can go ahead and feed to the ladies. We'll go do that, and I'll show you guys what you're looking at there. So that is done, and you can only do that once per day. So keep that in mind, you guys. So this is going to be something that largely for grinding on this event shouldn't be all that difficult. But if we go ahead and we take a look here, we'll go to the lady event, and we'll go ahead and we will feed these to the ladies. Let's go ahead and do that. And we are already almost to level 2. And then this one here, we'll go ahead and feed the ladies that, and we are almost to level 3. So pretty easy stuff. This is a very self-explanatory overall Valentine's Day event. All of this stuff is pretty simple. There really isn't anything here that you're going to need to really worry yourself over. My recommendation to you guys, like I said, if you're going to be grinding on the World Drop event or the Battle Card Dungeon, my recommendation would be you go in, pick the highest difficulty you can comfortably grind, and just go with that, because again, you will get better battle cards potentially dropped if you're grinding on the harder difficulties as opposed to some of the easier ones, but it's going to come down to where you're at in the game. And then as far as where you would want to grind on the story, again, my recommendation is the highest difficulty you can pick, and pick a game or a story mode where you're going to be able to go in and just fight one boss, easy peasy, knock them out. You can just set it on auto, no big deal. So that is pretty much what we're looking at this year for the overall Valentine's Day events. The biggest selling point of this entire thing, in my opinion, is going to be this guy here. Again, because you can pick up this boss syndrome memory. So that's really what I would say is the bigger selling point here. But in general, a lot of this stuff is very inclusive. Some of it feels like it's just a Tide You Over update, but that's really not a bad thing considering the fact that we do still have the SS Volume 5 banner going on, and I know a lot of people out there would prefer to be able to just kind of relax and kick back and wait for the next banner and just kind of save things up and stockpile. So that's pretty much what it looks like we're going to be able to do here for the next week to 10 days before we start hearing any rumblings about anything else. And who knows, maybe they'll wait until after the Valentine's Day events to throw out other characters or another banner at this point. We never know when it comes to Netmarble. If that were the case, that would give us almost 2 weeks in order to be able to just kind of relax and save, but time will tell. But anyway, you guys, that is going to be the Valentine's Day 2022 events. You let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all of this. Like, share, and subscribe if you found it informative, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Continue.